Good morning, welcome to another video on the channel, and today I'm bringing you something a little bit special aboard the Mason Bokeh 2. You'll know if you watched my last video on the Redshift stem that the intention was to sell the Cannondale CAD 12. I've done that, and I've used the money from that bike to get myself some pretty bling carbon wheels, and I've stuck them on a 1x gravel bike, which I know is not going to be everybody's cup of tea, but trust me, it's been an absolute hoot, and I'm really glad that I did it. So what did I get? As you probably see from the title, actually, yeah, I got the Parcours Strade wheels. I wanted something that would knock some weight off the bike. Fit nice wide tyres was a really key component for me, and the aerodynamic benefit is probably it's more secondary really. Let's not kid ourselves, on a gravel aluminium bike it's not going to be the most aerodynamic setup, but it's a nice secondary effect actually. What I really wanted was that stiff climbing wheel that the carbon gives you over aluminium. So thus far I've stuck about 200 miles into the wheels on mixed terrains, and I've been nothing but impressed actually. I'll talk a little bit more about the tyres in a different video, but I've set up some Hutchinson Fusion Performance tyres on this, the 30mm width, and actually they balloon out to about 30, just over 32mm actually on these tyres. So the width of the rim, 32 on the front, and then 30.5 on the rear. That's an external width, and then internally they both measure 22.5, which is quite wide for a modern wheel set, and that's exactly what Parkour were going for. They are Aero optimized for 28mm tyre. That then balloons it up to just over 30mm and adheres to the 105% aerodynamic rule that you kind of want to get for peak aerodynamics. I'll clearly not adhere to that. Mine are over 32, but they're still giving a really nice profile. So there's certainly some aerodynamic benefit there. I'm actually happy to forego that for a touch more comfort, which said at 70 psi and running tubeless, I've never had such a supple tyre actually. They're absolutely stunning. The rim's clearly a carbon, 49mm in the front and 54mm depth in the back. The spokes are X-ray, which to my mind are one of the best spokes on the market. The hubs are probably where they've saved a bit of money, because these do come in at a really competitive price point. So you're not going to get the blingest hubs on the market, but actually they've been absolutely fine for what I would want. You know, if I'd stuck with Hunt, which my other wheel sets are, and gone with the 48 Limitless, which is a similar width and depth to these wheels, you're paying an extra 400 quid for ceramic bearings and potentially a slightly nicer hub. I didn't feel that that was worthwhile in this instance, so I'm having to go with the Parkour wheels. So we're riding down to West Bay today. I'm going to crack on now, perhaps take a bit of on-bike camera footage, and once we're down at West Bay we'll have another chat about the wheels and see how many people are out on this lovely day during what is still semi-lockdown in the UK. I've done that thing again where I'm recording with my right hand, so on a 1x bike where all my gears are on the right hand side, I better hope the gradient doesn't change, because I'm not going to be able to shift. The width I've spoken about, that was really important to me to support a 32mm tyre, and I knew actually with the internal width of these wheels that a 30mm tyre was going to come out at, you know, circa 32mm measured. On the digital calipers these come out at 32.2, which is ideal for the sort of comfort and the look of the bike. I think with the width of the front fork on this bike, a 25mm tyre would just look ridiculous. So it needs to have a bit of width. And on broken roads in Britain, I actually think a sort of 28 to 30mm tyre is the best solution anyway. It's really noticeable out of my house, where I live in Somerset, that I'm right on the border with Dorset, so if I head south like I am today into Dorset, it suddenly gets really hilly. But the scenery is really beautiful, and of course you've got the coast waiting for you once you've got the hills out the way. Go north into the Somerset levels, it's all a bit flatter. So nice for those days where you want to ease off on the legs and you're not so bothered about the view. So I've mentioned taking a little bit of weight off the bike with these wheels. I have done that. They're about 100 grams lighter than the alloy gravel wheel set they've replaced, but it's more about the tyre really. These 30mm tyres weigh just under 300 grams, and the 35mm Schwalbe G1s that I had on the gravel wheels weigh about 450 grams. So I've saved 300 grams just on the tyres alone, and that's actually the biggest difference that I can feel. The 100 grams in the wheel set is probably going to be here nor there, but all that weight loss has happened at the rim So in terms of rolling rotational weight, these are an absolute pleasure on these hills. A smaller profiled wheel would have been even lighter and nippier, but I wouldn't call myself a powerful rider in terms of the watts I put out, but at sort of 80 to 85 kilos I am a heavier rider, so I prefer this deeper rim. It definitely feels much nicer in these hills. Okay, about halfway to West Bay now, 9.93 miles done. For those that don't know the local area very well, from Merriott to West Bay you basically start at about 40 metres above sea level. You end up at sea level, but you've got to go through Dorset. Some of the highest places in Dorset, there's one just up over there. So some climbing to be done, and you basically climb to the halfway point. I've just peaked over the highest point, and it's virtually downhill now all the way to West Bay, which is a really nice little descent. Clearly you've got to earn that somehow, and you do that on the way back home, I suppose. But the views are good. I keep waffling on about the views. I won't do a Katie Kilborough and start gushing about them too much, but they are really, really nice, and the road surfaces here are really good. So it really is a beautiful ride. Let's go back to the parkour wheel, shall we? So I think I've gone through the specs enough, and clearly they're all online. You can go straight onto Parkour's website and have a look through on those. But what are these like in life? Well, firstly, straight out the box, they don't come tubeless setup like a lot of wheels do nowadays. So if you are going to go tubeless straight away like I did, you're going to have to think about that, both rim tape and valves. And with these wheels in particular, I made the mistake of going with Muck-Off's tubeless valves at 60mm, and they don't fit the rear wheel. So I've had to get the longer ones. So make sure you go with at least 70mm if you are going to get tubeless valves for these wheels. I then got Muck-Off tubeless tape, 25mm width, which went in there absolutely beautiful. Just went once round the entire rim, and that has proved to be enough. Make sure that you locate the correct hole to stick your tubeless valve through. On my first go, what an amateur, I managed to stick it straight through a spoke hole, so I just had to retape that part of the wheel. But as I've already mentioned, I've got these set up with the Hutchinson Fusion Performance tyres in 30mm. They're not the Galactic, the ultralight ones, they are the Performance, so you probably see a bit of performance there for durability, which I think is well worthwhile. But these went on absolutely beautifully. I've never had a wheel set set up tubeless so easily. They go on to the rim with just the right amount of pressure. You want some pressure so that if you do puncture, you're not worried that the whole tyre is going to sweep off the rim. But at the same time, you don't want it to be an absolute git to get on and off, because if you do puncture by the side of the road, it's going to make your life pretty hellish trying to get it back off the rim and get a tube in there. So I can vouch with these wheels and Hutchinson Performance Fusion tyres, it is an absolute winning combination. They went on nicely. I put the sealant straight in. I didn't have to take the valve out of the tubeless valve itself, the sort of core. I left that all in. I just stuck the sealant straight in, put the last bit of the bead on the tyre, and I pumped this straight up, first time, both wheels, with a Lezyne truck pump. And it's a pretty useless pump in terms of volume. It's quite an accurate pump, but it's pretty useless in terms of volume. So I was so impressed that they just went straight up. Couple of pings to make sure that the bead has seated, and they didn't lose any pressure overnight at all, so they've really sealed up nicely, and thus far I've had no problems at all in terms of that tubeless setup. But do think about those extra bits you'll need when you order the wheels. From a noise point of view, everybody wants to hear the free hub, so once I'm down at West Bay I'll spin the wheel, but I'll put that in the video right now. You're going to be pretty disappointed potentially if you like a nice noisy free wheel. Yeah, so the free hub is absolutely beautiful in use. I've got no issues with it. I actually quite like the silent free hub when you're whistling down the hills and stuff, and in group rides it's not going to annoy anybody. But if you prefer your Chris King sounding hubs or your Mavic sounding hubs, then you might be disappointed with these. What you won't be disappointed with though, if you do like that whooshing sound of carbon wheels, is that you absolutely get that here. There's two places where I really noticed that. That's real slow speed out the saddle climbing up a hill. You can hear that real wheel. It's like a lightsaber fight going on behind you, which is pretty cool. But the other place where it catches you out is when you go into a canopy or a tunnel, or just a slightly more enclosed space on the road at speed. I have myself looking over my shoulder the whole time thinking there's a car or a motorbike coming up behind me. It's subtle, but it does make you look over your shoulder, which probably completely negates the aerodynamic benefit these wheels give you. But it sounds really nice, and I think that counts for a lot, because we all know when you buy bling things like this, you want them to sound and feel blingy, and they do that. So the key question on my gravel Bokeh, have they made me much faster? And the answer is undoubtedly yes, but not because necessarily it's a really aerodynamic wheel. Let's be honest, the biggest change there has been accepting the 30mm tyres, which are a lot lighter. They've made the rolling resistance go down. They feel far nippier. They're much nicer to climb with because of that loss of weight, and I could have done that on the wheels I already had. So that's probably been the biggest benefit gained. Comfort's been the biggest surprise. I haven't lost anywhere near as much comfort as I thought I was going to over the Schwalbe G1s on the other wheel set, which were actually coming up at about 38mm. I'm absolutely blown away by the comfort of these wheels and this setup, and I'd feel happy actually sticking even 28s on this bike now with this setup. They take out the road noise beautifully, and then between the redshift stem and the seat post, they're absorbing some of those bigger hits. So comfort's been the best thing about them. The sound of them has been really nice, and actually the stiffness of the wheel. I've had no brake rub once I've got the brakes set up properly. The calipers, I've had no noise coming from there like I did occasionally get with the alloy wheels. So they feel nice and stiff when climbing up the hills, which was a big boon for me. The aerodynamics, I don't have a wind tunnel, I don't even have a power meter, so I'm not going to even talk about those, but subjectively they feel really nice, especially above about 20 miles an hour, where you felt the width of the 38mm Schwalbe G1 was holding back perhaps. Not so much on these. They really do roll quite nicely. Right, I'm going to put the camera away, get myself down to West Bay. We'll have a final few thoughts down there. So one of the things I do want to talk about is why I ended up with the Parcours Strade Wheelset over perhaps some of the other competitors. The hunts I've spoken about, I felt for the £400 extra you spend on the Limitless, I didn't feel the difference in hubs or bearings would be really worth that. Zippo just announced the 303S. They were right at the top of my want list for the price. I thought they looked really good. Difference is they got J-bend spokes, potentially more durable, but the straight pulls will give you a stiffer wheel set in my opinion, and they were also only a 27mm outer width, so as soon as I would have put a 30mm tyre on, it would have completely blown apart the aerodynamic argument. So I felt that these were a more suitable wheel set because of that. Other competitors, the Roval Terra CLX would have been a pretty nice wheel set. They look so light for the build that they are. But they are very expensive. They're going to have the much better hubs with the DT Swiss internals. I'd give them that, and a really good warranty sort of backup behind it if you do dink them or crash them. But I just felt for almost twice what this wheel set was, I couldn't stretch up to that. So it left me looking at some of Hunt's other wheels, which their availability is particularly poor at the moment. The Parkour wheels or the Scribe wheels look good also. So decided to go with the Parcours. From their own sort of selection of wheels, the Alters are the gravel ones, 28 spokes versus 24. This is going to be an out-and-out road wheel set for me. It's not going to see any gravel, so I wanted less spokes, less weight, stiffer wheel build. So that left me between the that left me with the Parkour Grimper. I thought, right, that's going to be the wheel set for me, because I'd sort of discounted these as being a bit too deep. But when I looked into the fact that these are deeper, more aerodynamic, wider, and have proven less side force in windy conditions than the Grimpers, then apart from a gain of 150 grams, I couldn't see a downside to going with the Stradas. They are slightly more expensive as well, I must say. I decided to go with these, and I'm glad I did for all the reasons I've discussed so far. This is very much initial impressions though, and of course I want to stick about 6 months or at least a summer's riding on these to see where I end up with a full review. So do leave some comments down below as to what you want to know about the wheels in particular in that review. What I can say undoubtedly is that they've changed my Mason Bokeh from an out-and-out gravel bike, and they've made it a really capable road option. I'd have no qualms taking this out for a tap de tour now, or packing it up on my European cycling rides that I go and do. So it really is the all-round bike for me now. Like I say, any questions, leave them in the comment sections. If you like the video, like the content, please do give it a like, and if you could subscribe to my channel, that will help me grow and deliver more content in the future. So thanks, take care, see you soon.